All right, this is a recording that has to do with the syllabus. So instead of using valuable synchronous class time to talk about the syllabus, I'm going to put this into a recording. So this way we can talk about actual class material during class. So the syllabus is already linked from your Canvas account. So you can read the full document from your Canvas account. This is section 2. Section 2 is just a brief explanation of why this is not on Canvas, because this makes the syllabus independent to the LMS, which means if somehow if they choose, the district chooses to use another LMS, learning management system, I don't have to redo everything from scratch. And this is basically a syllabus, and from here on will be a section that is common to all my classes. My first name is Tak, and last name is Aoyong, and my phone number is 916-484-8250. If you call me, you're most likely getting to a voicemail, which then will be sent to me by email. You can also directly email me at this particular address, but I'll let you guys know what is the best way to contact me in just a little bit. The way I'm going to make presentation and deliver content of this class will be mostly using reading material. So there are linked PDF and HTML documents already, and that's basically your reading material. Video clips and synchronous mode and also asynchronous mode lectures, that applies to this semester for sure, because we are not meeting in class. There are no face-to-face classes for this semester. There may be some interactive activities that we call homework, so that is kind of sprinkled around the entire semester. So I may not have persistent basically video clips that include closed captioning. That's usually not how I do things. And this particular server is also outdated. So I have to kind of fix this part of the syllabus. But the content is already linked correctly within Canvas, so you don't have to worry about this part. Section 6 talks about regular effective contact and communication policy. So that basically has to do with how you contact me if you need to keep in touch with me. There are office hours, and the office hours are Mondays through Friday from noon to 1 p.m. So try to use the office hour as much as you can. You can always email and use the phone. Those are very traditional ways to contact me. You can use Canvas to contact me as well, but I'll also talk about how you can contact me because of synchronous lecture. We are going to use Discord, okay, for the most part. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. The time frame policy has to do with how long would it take me to reply to a message. It's going to take me, well, according to this, it will take me up to 24 hours on a weekday and up to 48 hours over the weekend. And that is a lot of time, okay? But I don't want to basically be on my phone or device all day long to reply to messages, especially when it's done through Discord, because Discord has very, very good mechanisms to get my attention, okay? So I do want to limit, how much time I spend on my phone and my computer to answer messages. The best way to interact with me is to attend the synchronous lectures if you can, because that way you can ask questions and I can answer those questions in real time right away. And I am basically guaranteeing that during that time I will be available to talk and discuss and talk about class stuff, okay? And the same thing applies to the office hours. Conduct policy, this is a really kind of long section, well, more or less. There are two documents that you probably, well, there's one document that you probably want to read, which is the expectations of behavior and conduct. So read that one first, okay, if you have not read it yet. And then, so we're moving on to the third paragraph over here. The primary goal is to create an effective learning environment. Now, whether it's online or not, it is kind of the same thing, because I just do not want any behavior that will affect the learning environment, and especially when it threatens some people. So there are several different types of activities that can be bad in a class. The first one would be unintentional distracting behavior. That happens more often with a face-to-face class as opposed to an online class. So in an online class, especially through Discord, you guys can direct message each other all day long, okay? Even during lecture, okay? Because as long as it doesn't bother the rest of the class, it's okay. It's just that, if somebody asks me to re-explain something that I just explained because they have been distracted, I'll just tell that person to watch the video again, because that's why I'm recording the whole thing. So if somebody is getting distracted or is distracting other people, when I'm lecturing and they're chatting with each other, they basically will have to deal with not getting the content while they're distracting each other. 7.2 has to do with intentional behavior to cause confusion, fear, intimidation, or discomfort. So if I notice anything like this, or if this is reported to me in any way, that is enough ground for me to contact the student conduct officer, and because that's behavior that the district and the college cannot tolerate. Needless to mention, 7.3 is also something that the district cannot tolerate either. Section 8 talks about the first day of class or orientation. So any absence of the first day of class is sufficient reason to get dropped. So if it's an online class, especially when it has a synchronous lecture, so we define the first day of class as the first day that I have a synchronous lecture. Now, when we talk about a day, we will be talking about basically up to 24 hours since the beginning of the synchronous lecture. So it's not exactly at midnight, which is the usual way of looking at the beginning of a day. So when we talk about first day of class, it is referring to when the lecture starts, okay, and 24 hours from that time would be defined as the quote-unquote first day of class. If anyone needs accommodations, you can contact the DSPS office in order to get the accommodations. So if you need anything from me, don't hesitate to ask, but I can only provide resources up to a certain point. If you need a captioner, for instance, a live captioner, then you need to contact the DSPS and see if they can arrange a captionist for you. Excessive absence is 6% or more absences. So with an online class, how do we calculate absences? Okay, because that's kind of difficult to do. So the first thing, so we can skip 10.1, which is face-to-face, and we can go straight to 10.2 with an online class. Now, the way I do online classes is through synchronous lectures. So I am going to use that as a basis of quote-unquote taking roll. So on each day that I have a synchronous lecture, which in both of my classes that I'm teaching this semester are Tuesdays and Thursdays. So basically starting at the time that I start the lecture up to 24 hours after that, within that 24-hour period, there will be an activity for people to participate in order to basically show that they quote-unquote attended the class. In other words, for people who cannot attend the synchronous lecture, it's still okay as long as they can watch the video and get the activity done within 24 hours since the beginning of the lecture. anyone who is missing such an activity is counted as one single absence. All right, so next question. What about Wednesday? Okay, because we are not meeting on Wednesday. There are no synchronous lectures on Wednesday, nor Monday, nor Friday. So that means those days, the days where I do not have a synchronous lecture, there's no taking role. Okay, you guys can do whatever you want on those days. Okay, there's no obligation to participate in any activities on those days. But on the days when I do have synchronous lectures, then you have to participate in certain activities in order to be counted as quote-unquote present. Okay, so now how do we calculate the 6%? Because 6% means it is excessive. At least 6% is considered excessive. So for that, we can actually refer back to this particular scenario here. Both classes that I'm teaching this semester has 54 hours of lecture time. And because each lecture that I have scheduled has 80 minutes, so if you use this calculation, then each lecture accounts for 2.47% of all the lecture time of the entire semester. So that means missing one lecture is equivalent to missing about a little bit less than 2.5%. So the first absence is going to be okay. First absence is going to be okay. The second absence, which will bring the percentage to close to 5%, is okay too. But the third one is not. Okay, so the third absence will be considered excessive. Now, do I just kick people out because they have more than 6% of absences? Most of the time, that is not the case. Most of the time, I would look into the other activities that the student may have left a trace of. But if I do not see any traces of any activity, and there are more than 6% of cumulative absences, I will drop those people from the class. All right, so moving on to excuses. So certain absences are excusable, and in this case, any absences due to the student's own health are excused, but it needs to be accompanied by official requests from, if there are sports events, which is not going to happen this semester, okay, so this really does not apply. But this may apply, okay, if there is a proof of summon for jury duty or any appearance in court, that will also be excused. There are many other reasons that are not excused: religious holidays, family occasions, job interviews, work-related issues, car transportation problems, which is not an issue because we are online, childcare-related issues. Those are all not excused. Now, in a face-to-face class, these can be a little rough, right? Because you have to drive, you have to get to a certain destination at a certain time of the day, and if you cannot make it, you're counted as absent. Okay, that can be a little rough. But this is an online class, which means you have basically up to 24 hours to show that, yep, I participated in one of the activities that I'm using for role-taking purposes. So I really don't think people should be missing a lot of classes and using up all of these unexcused absences. Late policy for the class is there is no late policy. In other words, if something is late, I am not going to give it any grade. Okay. Now, if people say, I know I'm late, but I still want you to give me some feedback, whether it's correct or not, I can do that. That is not a problem. Okay, but it is not going to count to the score that will be added up for the class. Any late work will not be counted. Okay, so schedule your time carefully so that you turn in everything on time. Okay, that is basically something that you have to do in order to make sure that your assignments all count. Section 13 is a little bit big, and it's getting a little bit bigger because I noticed that with online classes, the cases where I notice academic dishonesty has increased. So this is rather important. So the way I look at academic dishonesty is when a student attempts or participates in any activity to attempt to show possession of a level of competency, knowledge, or skill beyond that of the student or some other students. Okay, I know I have to fix the grammar because it's a singular and I'm using the plural verb, but basically it is an intention to show a competency or level of knowledge or skill that is beyond the actual student. Okay, so that includes a lot of stuff. Okay, it includes things that are blatant, like copying from somebody else's answer. Okay, but it also includes other things like asking somebody else to do the homework, asking somebody else to take the exam, and stuff like that. Okay. So 13.1 is looking at the same thing, but looking at it kind of from a positive side, is academic integrity. The grade of a particular student, in a particular assessment, should be of the student and only of the student who turn in the work, and it should be done using the during the approved scheduled time of the assessment. It has to follow all the rules of the assessment as well as general rules already discussed in the syllabus, unless otherwise stated, and using only resources that are allowed by the instructor. So that means if you think that you might want to use a resource that is kind of not explicitly mentioned, but you think it might be okay, well, ask me first. Okay, you can always ask, and if I say, yep, that's perfectly okay, then it's okay. 13.2 talks about the litmus test. So what that really is a way for me, if I want to check whether somebody actually did a particular answered a particular question or not. So if I suspect, okay, something is going on, something is a little bit fishy, I can request people to take a second test, okay, and I can use the score or the performance of the first test and the performance of the second test to determine whether that person cheated in one of them or not. Okay, and this is something that I can initiate. It is not something that a student who is accused of cheating can request. So let's make that very clear. Section 13.3 talks about why I'm putting so much effort into curbing academic dishonesty. So it really is just about fairness to all students, fairness to basically people who take the same class. Because if people are cheating out of my classes and they got admitted to a university, okay, sooner or later there will be a pattern. And these professors at these universities will notice that pattern. They will basically say, hey, we get a lot of students coming from ARC. They have good grades coming out of ARC, but they don't know anything over here. Okay. And guess what's going to happen? Okay, we're going to lose. ARC is going to lose articulation agreement with these particular universities. Okay. And that is unfair to people who did not cheat, people who are honest, people who actually worked hard to get the grade that they're getting. Okay, so for that reason, I look at academic dishonesty very, very seriously, and I would try my best to stop these things from happening. So the next question is, okay, what happens, if I catch people contributing to academic dishonesty? Now, I said, contributing. So that means if person A asks person B and say, well, I really cannot answer all of these questions. I'm not going to pass this class. Can you give me an answer of question blah blah in a test? Okay. If person B agrees and I find proof that that has happened, then both person A and person B will have to face these consequences. So it's not really just the person who intends to boost his or her perceived performance. The person who's helping is also going to face the same consequences. So the first consequence is the entire assessment will get a 0, will get no credit whatsoever. if I find evidence of only one question, containing an answer that really should not be there, okay, it is proof of academic dishonesty, the entire test will receive a 0, okay? That one is for sure, okay? But also starting in fall 2019, and this is before COVID-19, all identified cases of academic dishonesty will be reported to the student conduct officer, okay? I'm not sure whether this link still works or not. Let me just give it a try here. Yep, sure enough, it's not working. So I will go ahead and update this particular link so that it works, okay? But there will be no exceptions, okay? No one is going to say, oh, but this is my first time, I really know that I'm not supposed to do this. I'm so sorry, but can you not report it to the student conduct office? The answer is no, okay? All of these cases will be reported. Now, how the Office of Student Conduct handle these cases is up to them, okay? Maybe the person in charge of the Office of Student Conduct will look at a particular case and go like, well, this is the first time, there's no prior record of any kind, and you seem to understand that this is not a good thing to do. It'll just kind of give you a warning, and that's it, okay? That can happen, okay? Yeah, I got a lot of interesting stories. If anyone is interested about cheating and how I caught some of these cheating cases and what people do afterwards. Okay, so all of those can be an interesting discussion, but it's for another day. All right, so getting back to student rights and responsibility, this is a good document to read because if anyone feels that I have wrongfully accused that person, this document will kind of show the details of what to do in that case, okay? So number 15, this we talked a little bit about already. Most of these do not apply anymore simply because we are in an online environment. But the idea is still the same, okay? I just don't want a lot of distractions in my classes. Number 16 is something that people would look at and go like, do I really need this? How to attend lectures? Well, the way I do things, especially now that everything is online, is I try my best to record everything. So that means if you have a way to catalog when, on which day, and at what time I talk about a particular thing, it's going to be very handy. Because you can go to the lecture recording of that day and quickly fast forward to that particular time instead of having to watch the entire thing again to search for the one little topic that you want to rewatch. So that is the essence of this entire section. Section 16 is, when you're in a lecture, especially if you're in the asynchronous lecture, try not to write down or copy everything that I do, okay? Because it's all going to be recorded. Now, you might want to double check to make sure that everything is being recorded, okay? So it doesn't hurt my feelings at all if you guys say, Tech, are you sure we are recording at this point, okay? Or somebody can go to YouTube and check and go like, hey, the recording over at YouTube, the live stream over at YouTube doesn't seem to have the audio. Something is not right. Okay, so you guys can help me to make sure that everything is recorded correctly. So assuming everything is recorded correctly, there's no need to copy everything that you see on the screen because it is already being recorded, right? So what you can do is to focus on what I'm talking about and try to ask questions in class during the synchronous session. That is really the best use of your time. Now the other one is going to have use a little notepad on the side and just kind of jot down the time, okay? Because you can see right here. Let me see if I can point you to the date here. So you can see, I put up a little clock overlay in my recordings. So that makes it very easy for you to notice what time it is and just write it down, okay? So this way you can make your own index into the recordings. And I think that's actually pretty useful. And all the way, all links on Moodle this is irrelevant anymore because I don't have a Moodle server anymore. So the Moodle should be replaced by Canvas at this point. Section 17 is really long, and I'm going to leave it up to you to read this, okay? How to succeed in this class, okay? So the bottom line, okay, the essence of how to succeed in one of my classes. I don't really know how other people teach classes, but when I teach a class, I expect people to understand the content and be able to demonstrate to me that they understand the concepts. But how can I know whether a person understands the concepts or not? I'm not Vulcan. I cannot do the mind meld, okay? I cannot, read minds to see whether someone is understanding a particular concept or not. So it boils down to assessment activities like exams, homework assignments, and whatnot. So if I fast forward a little bit, okay, it's all about problem solving. Every single question in my tests is a problem to be solved. There are no memorizations, no rote learning type of questions. Everything is about solving a problem. And in solving a problem, I can see whether someone, one, understand the concepts. Because someone can at least mention and go like, okay, I can see this question has to do with this concept over here, and this is the definition of a theorem that seems to apply in this case. So somebody actually has to recall things that are related to the problem. The second one is even more important. How do you make use of the knowledge that you have learned in this class to solve the problem? So now you have to apply the knowledge that you have learned in order to solve the problem. And it has to be solved in steps so I can actually see the reasoning of how the problem is solved. So if I can see how a problem is solved, then I can confirm, one, you have the knowledge, okay? You know the stuff, okay? And also two, you have the skills to solve a problem. You know how to apply the knowledge to solve problems. So this class is all my classes, not just the one that you're taking right now. All my classes are really about solving problems, because guess what you do when you become a developer, when you become a part of the workforce? What are you going to do? You're going to solve problems, okay? Particularly, there'll be a lot of buggy legacy code that you have to debug as a beginning developer. So problem solving is important in this class. 17.3 is about independence. So when you're studying or when you're trying to do your homework, how independent should you try to be? So let me give you an example, okay? Let's say I give you guys a homework assignment and I specifically say that, well, if you guys want to collaborate, go ahead and do it, okay? This is an assumption, okay? This is a big if. So even if that was the case, okay? The question is, when is a person going to ask somebody else, okay? And basically say, okay, I think I'm stumped, I need some help, okay? So now the question is it 5 minutes into the activity, 10 minutes into the activity? So we can even make an assumption that the activity is due in a week, like 7 days. So when is a good time to say that, well, I think I'm kind of stumped, okay? I might want to ask someone, including the professor, of how do we approach this problem? The answer is, well, there's no ideal answer, okay? I cannot give you the amount of time like, well, if you cannot solve this problem in 7 hours, 6 minutes, and 20 seconds, then maybe you should ask someone to help you. I cannot give you an actual time frame like that, okay? But I also know that the answer is not going to be 5, 10, 15, or even 30 minutes, okay? Half an hour is not that much, because in order to try to solve a problem, your mind is exercising. It is basically just trying to make connections between the concepts that you have learned in class. So by asking somebody else a question and try to get the answer, the solution right away, that person, the person who's asking, is not going to get the exercise. It's not going to get the activity, the mind activities in order to understand the concepts. So that ultimately is going to be a very bad idea, because the exam questions are all about solving problems. So that's why we just kind of think about when is a good time to start asking questions. So let's move on to something that everybody wants to know. Okay, what about the grading standard? Okay, how do I convert your score, which is basically just a number, basic percentage, into your letter grade at the end of the semester? So I just use A, B, C, D, F to grade everything, assignments, tests, and so on. And we kind of know what an A is. It's an excellent, submission, an excellent answer. Okay, F is a failing one. C is kind of like right in between. It's satisfactory / fair. Okay, so you need a C. You need to pass a class with a C to meet the prerequisite of whatever other class that you need to take after that. So that's why C is right here. A D is a low pass. It is somewhere between a C and an F, where somebody seems to be able to demonstrate a little bit of understanding of the concepts, but insufficiently so. A B, on the other hand, is somewhere between an A, which is a perfect answer, like, well, the answer cannot be better than this, and a C, which is like, I guess so. Okay, so a B typically applies when somebody makes a careless mistake, okay, or an omission that is going like, well, you should have mentioned this, but it was not mentioned. I think you just forgot to mention it. Okay, so it's about accidentally making a mistake or forgetting to do something. Okay, forgetting about certain details that will turn an A answer into a B answer. But the difference between a B answer and a C answer is going to be a little bit more significant. So typically a C answer reflects a misunderstanding of something. It is not a misunderstanding of something that is super crucial, but nonetheless, it is a misunderstanding. It is not a mistake. It is not someone forgetting about something. It is a misunderstanding. A D basically means the essential concept is not understood, or there's no demonstration of a sufficient understanding. And an F typically applies when there's no answer whatsoever, or the answer has nothing to do with the question. All right, so the other roles basically look at the same thing, A, B, C, D, F, using different types of scenarios. Like in the job evaluation, what would be an A type of evaluation? What would be an F type evaluation? What would be a B type evaluation? If you buy something from Amazon, okay, and you evaluate a product, a 5-star product basically is an A product. A 1-star product is basically an F product. So, but what you really care is this part over here. Is anyone who gets at least 87.5% at the end of the semester gets a letter grade of A. Anyone who gets a percentage that is between 62.5%, which is 5/8, and 87.5%, which is 7/8, is going to get a B. And this is where C is. So to get a C is really at least 37.5%. And you might think, well, that's super easy. And I can reassure you that it is not that easy. Okay, just over the summer session, I think about half of my class got a D or lower score. Okay, which was not good. Okay, I did not intend for that to happen. In the past, I typically get maybe, I would say maybe a quarter, or maybe less than a quarter. Usually less than a quarter of people getting D's and F's at the end of a semester. But over the summer session, it was really kind of particularly rough. Okay, and I think it had to do with the compressed schedule. There just wasn't enough time for concepts to sink in. So that 37.5% doesn't come easy. Okay, so don't underestimate. Okay, just do not underestimate. Section 19 talks about the activities that will give you scores, that will contribute to the percentage that we are just talking about. All the homework assignments, and if I do give quizzes, okay, which I seldom do, they all add up to only 20%. Okay, in other words, these are more like exercises, okay, for people to do so that they can exercise their minds, so that they can get a deeper, more thorough understanding of the concepts, or at least know whether they understand the concepts or not. Okay, that's what the purpose of the homework assignments. And sometimes we call those labs, but they're basically just assignments. There are 3 exams. The first exam is about 1/3 through the semester. That accounts for 20%. And then there will be another exam also contributing to 20% of the final score. That's usually about 2/3 through the duration of the class. And then obviously there's a final exam that accounts for 40% of the score. So 80% of the score comes from exam type of assessment. And the other 20% come from assignment/lab type of assessments. I might give you, especially if people request, I will give you ungraded assignments. In other words, I'll give you something to do, but I'm not going to collect your answer to grade. And the reason is really simple. Okay, I can only do so much grading, and I cannot grade anything on top of what I have already assigned, to be graded. But on the other hand, some people might want some additional exercises, some additional challenges to both to exercise their mind to solve problems and also to have a confirmation of whether they understand the concept or not. So from time to time, especially when people ask, I will give the class ungraded assignments. So the way it works is at the end of the class, I will give people a problem, okay? And I will typically, in the next class, I will answer those particular questions. There's nothing to turn in. People, I recommend people to do, okay, to try to solve those problems. But I would disclose the answer in about 1 to 2 classes. And then people can compare their answers with my answers and see if they're the same. And if they are different, we can talk about it in class. Okay, so that's why we have synchronous lectures. It's for interaction, so that people can say, well, I can see your answer, but I have a different answer that seems to work too. Can we talk about this? Can we talk about how they're different, whether one is better than the other one, whether one is correct and the other one is not correct, or are they just different ways of doing the same thing and they're equally correct? So we can talk about those things in class. And the tentative schedule is class dependent, so I'm not going to get into that. So there you have it. Okay, so we just spent, let's see how long here. I don't have a time here to tell me how long I have been recording, but anyway, this is the discussion of the syllabus, which I expect everybody to watch. Okay, and so we don't have to spend time talking about this during the first day of class. Thank you for watching.